like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
So there was this article I just saw recently on BBC. Actually, I always love when I see Korea in something other than Korea Times or Korea Herald, where I check for a lot of my news. When something pops up on like one of my other news feeds, it's kind of fun. And there's this kind of famous tattooist here. I just learned, I'd always thought it was tattoo artist, by the way. I didn't realize tattooist was the word. But this favorite tattooist, Doi, I guess, Do Yoon Kim, on the article, who just basically got in legal trouble here in Korea. And you guys know, I mean, we've got some ink on each of us, and I'm sure you've had to experience this a little bit, but I was surprised to see that they really got in legal trouble, especially considering this article on the BBC was talking about how this guy is like a pretty famous tattooist abroad. Actually, I had the article up and my wife saw his picture. She's like, oh, that guy's like the leader of the like tattoo union here. Like she saw his face, like she knows who this guy is as well, which I wasn't expecting because she's not really into tattoos. So sure. Yeah, where do we go with this? I mean, why are tattoos strange? Why is this something that, and this is what the article kind of talks about, this guy is like a famous tattooist in the States. They talked about him, you know, working with celebrities. Like they name dropped Brad Pitt a couple of times.
Yeah, he tattooed Brad Pitt, right?
That according to the article. Yeah.
And several Korean pop stars and actresses, right. I believe.
So this guy's probably, I mean, obviously he does really good work. Mm-hmm. And tattooists, again, this is why I always called them a tattoo artist, because I got both of my tattoos done back in the States, and the people that I went to get mine done, they are artists. It's a very respected job. It's very cool job.
I prefer body art as opposed to tattoos. It's just, I like tattoos. I'm like, it's like your skin is the canvas, and that's their you know, they're putting their artwork on you, and it's usually should be unique, I guess, if you're choosing correctly, which I wasn't always, but I'll talk about that later. But
or if you're in a gang, then it's never unique, right? Because it's got to match it's got to match everybody.
Right.
You got to know you're in that gang.
Yeah, it's a scheme.
right. But yeah, so it's a very, you know, I don't know if it's a respected profession. It is, but I mean, when you think respected profession, I'm thinking like doctors, lawyers, things like that. And I don't think that a doctor is necessarily any better of a job than a tattoo artist, but it depends on how you want to qualify it here. But in the States, it's a cool job. You meet someone who's a tattoo artist and it's like, rad, cool, good for you. Whereas here, it's illegal still in 2022. Yeah.
But don't you think that Korea's like kind of in the middle of like a cultural schism almost? Do you know what I mean? Like things are moving so quickly. I mean, I let me ask you, I started teaching university in 2006. You guys shortly after. How many tattoos did you see back then? Not on students, not as many as now, right?
No, very few times.
Zero, even like like even for guys, for male students who have like ear piercings, I felt like that was even less. It was something I feel like we talked about when I first came to Korea, because just in general, that was one observation from those early days when I came here originally, was around the time that you started teaching at university, was when I was first in the country. And I noticed just in general how much more uniform fashion and design and stuff like for individual persons. So what I'm trying to say is like there was only like a handful of haircuts. There wasn't a lot of like we never had a student with like a shaved head.
I've had like pink hair at the time.
Yeah, like colored hair. I mean, that's also like come up. I remember when I was in high school in the 90s, that was also considered like, you know, crazy. But you know, now it's not so crazy. You know, there's elementary school kids now that have colored hair in America. It's no big deal. But it was at the time. So what I was trying to say is when I came here, there was one of the things I noticed right away coming straight from Chicago, straight to Busan, was how the fashion seemed more unified. You
There's
didn't have
like within a certain bandwidth, there's a variety, but it never went outside these perimeters, you know?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've seen that as well. Koreans are very fashionable, but it's in a very few fashions that they stick to. Until more recently, like you were saying, though, it is changing.
Yeah, but it's completely flipped on its head now. I mean,
people are starting to break away from it a lot. And now I definitely see a lot more tattoos in classes of young students.
Even students that I would, ton, but even more. Students that I would consider kind of square. You know what I mean? Like they look totally normal and just like, oh, you're just kind of, you know, right down the middle, right, you know, 20-year-old or whatever. They'll have tattoos now, which would have been, you know, 10 years prior would have been kind of shocking. It'd be like, I'd be taken aback. And now it's just, it's nothing.
It's really funny to me how like these articles are talking about how tattoos are, well, tattooing is not necessarily illegal. I guess is something that we should clarify. Tattooing is not illegal, but tattoo artists are working illegally if they are not a doctor, basically,
or have like a certain medical license, I think.
Right, yeah, if not necessarily PhD doctor, medical doctor, but yeah, there's some certificate or something that they need to have. They basically need to be in some way medically trained, and that's where legally tattoos still need to have that here. So any of these just smaller tattoo shops that you'll see in Korea, or your students who have gone to get tattoos, they're getting it done illegally. But this is something that's kind of like on, you know, just on the gray side of illegal. It's like the cops don't really care about it too much. It's technically illegal, but it is nonetheless illegal. Actually, one of my wife's cousin, she just got a tattoo not too long ago, and she got it done very, very carefully on her arm because she's like, can't show my mom, I have to keep it hidden from parents. But she got it. One of her friends, she goes to like an art university. She's very artsy herself, and one of her friends is training to be a tattoo artist, and so they just kind of did it on the DL for her. And so yeah, tattooing is still underground here, but it's not. It's becoming more and more common, even though everyone who's gotten their tattoo, not everyone, but many people who've gotten their tattoos done by any like tattoo artist that you're going to see on social media got it done likely illegally, technically illegally.
And I think a lot of the politicians, the older conservative people, the common excuses that they used to fall back on for why it continues to be illegal is becoming more and more specious, I suppose, because it's being proven wrong in real time. You know what I mean? It's just like, this is an expression of your own unique personality and artistic outlet or whatever, and it has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? Like, why, you know, if I want to get a tattoo, it's about personal freedom. I think it's an expression of personal freedom that, you know, I don't think the old excuses just aren't holding up anymore
and what are those old excuses, Jack?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research on this, actually, to be honest. And
same.
So what they claimed was that because of infection, these people need to be licensed, which I think is fair enough. But I guess I have one question I have is, in America, are all tattoo artists licensed? Do you need a license in the US? I didn't check.
I think it'd be state-based, right?
Yeah.
Each would have their own laws for that.
Yeah, I don't think you can order
there definitely
like
are
a
laws
tattoo gun
for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably do it. I don't know. I'm pretty sure there must be some kind of state requirements of like, it has to be at least this level of cleanliness and whatever the OSHA requirements are for when you're using needles and whatnot. But in Korea, the threshold is a little bit higher. You have to have some kind of medical license and be a medically licensed, I believe esthetician is the right word, or for cosmetic tattooing. And so the common procedures that are done these days are eyebrows. So they'll tattoo like darkened eyebrows. Actually, I think what it does is, I consulted my wife on this because I'm a little bit not knowledgeable about this, but it saves them time when it comes to putting makeup on. So instead of penciling your eyebrows and filling in
your eyebrows
color,
are done.
Yeah, it's already done, right? And so the same thing goes with like the eyeliner as well. They'll do an eyeliner tattoo so that you don't have to put
Oh,
eyeliner on.
I can't imagine getting a tattoo on my
I
eyelids.
know,
That's just
like see your
weird,
eyelids, right? Getting tattooed
right?
on your eyelids can't be
Oh,
comfortable.
I'm gonna
And
pass on
these
that
are
one.
like these are semi-permanent, so they over time they do
Yeah,
start to fade away.
yeah. So people have to get them redone. I've seen that.
Yep, yep. If you like the result, you can get it redone. If you don't, you got to hang in there for a few years. You hope that it's balanced
Right.
and
So the
symmetrical.
tattoo artist, like someone who has an intention to be like a, you know, traditional regular tattoo artist, and they don't want to go to medical school, they could get the same license that someone would need for tattooing eyebrows.
Well, I think this is I think what according to the article, there were doctors that actually stopped doing practicing medicine and they jumped over to cosmetic tattooing. And so
Really?
I think they're actually,
It's a
I
better
think
buck
they're,
in the
I know
eyebrows.
they're making, it must be like quite a
And
racket because
I would imagine that you can't just get whatever certificate is required, because if it was relatively easy to get that certificate, then this Doi guy would have done so.
right. And
Yeah,
that's the problem. That's their argument is like, I gotta go to medical school. Just you're gonna make me hop through, you know, whatever medical. I mean, first you got to get accepted, then you got to do all this work, and then just so you can become a tattoo artist. I mean, it wouldn't be worth it. And so,
Right.
you know, and then what are the chances that all these like doctors that have jumped over to cosmetic tattooing are also amazing tattoo artists? You know,
Yeah,
unless
some of
you
them
want
definitely are.
eyebrows on your body and, you know, like, yeah, I don't on your bicep, you know, the outline of lips or something. But, you know, this is the problem is they just, I think it's, again, that's why I don't really think they're being honest in their, but by holding this law up as the barrier to, you know, for these people for tattoo artists to actually do their work.
Yeah,
It's
at this point, that's kind of like where it's just the law is kind of holding it up. But historically in tattoos, like the reason people didn't get them in the past is because, like you were saying, and I mean in the States kind of as well, like tattoos, you know, way back in the day, it was like, oh, that guy's a bad guy. Not really bad, but just like, you know, a bad boy kind of like, you know, Billie Irish kind of bad
right.
boy song type of thing. But here it really was very much, you know, tattoos are gangsters. Like if you've got a tattoo, you're in a gang here in the past.
But that came from that had a lot to do with the Japanese what am I trying to say, the Japanese
Yakuza?
Yeah, like the Japanese rule over Korea from, I don't know, early 1900s to 1950, and their own culture of like, yeah, Yakuza, gangster, that kind of got transplanted into Korea. That's where that idea came from. But if you go back
True.
to, you know, Joseon Dynasty or even further back, there was, I believe, in the article, did you guys catch that part where they,
Yeah,
you get kind of
like,
stamped with like a scarlet
yeah,
letter
tattoo
if
is like
you,
a brand
yes, it was
more
a
than a
brand
tattoo,
essentially. Yeah, like you commit a crime,
like for
you steal a
thieving or
horse,
something like that.
yeah, and so you
Right.
wear that, and so it got a bad connotation to you know, oh, you're a thief, you're whatever.
Have you guys noticed much difference in the way your tattoos are noticed over the past, you know, 10-15 years since you've been here? I've seen that generally no one really cares about mine anymore, and mine aren't very big. I've just got something on the back of my neck, and of course when I'm teaching I wear a collared shirt so you can't see it at all, and then I've got something on my calf, and when I'm wearing pants, again, you can't see it at all. But I remember my first job at a Hagwon, the one on my neck, if I'm just wearing a t-shirt you can see it. And my first job at a Hagwon, I was often sitting on the floor. It was old school Hagwons. They'd be sitting at the floor around these little tables with all the kids, and the kids would be up because they're kids, and so they'd be up and running around the classroom, and they'd run behind me, and a lot of times they would stop and they'd like start poking at my skin, and they'd be like, what is that? And they'd like tracing, and they were very, very surprised to see it. I never had anyone say like, oh, you're a gangster, you're bad, you've got that. But people were just like, what? Like mostly kids. Again, adults, I mean, well, no adult is going to come up and poke your skin, generally social norms, but kids would just be surprised at it, and they didn't know what it was. really. Whereas these days, some of the kids that I tutor, like I wear shorts in the summer when I go over their house, and there's not even a mention. They don't even look at it sideways or anything like that.
Yeah, and we're foreigners, so I think this. I saw
And
like,
that.
oh, those foreigners are just they're just doing their own foreigner thing. You know, this is back in the day. This is 10, 15 years
Right.
ago.
You get a pass. You get a pass.
You get a pass.
I've never had like when not in the entire time I've been here, what is it, like over 12 years, I've never once had, I mean, my tattoos are by design hidden. I mean, that's kind of like, that was an idea I had back when I was 18. Like I assumed I'd have some sort of professional job. So, and it's just been that way. Like in my neighborhood here, I've been living here for 2 years. Probably no one's ever seen my tattoos here. Yeah, you'd have to kind of know me. No, like, that's not true. That's not true. If I go running, because my tattoo's on my arm, if I go running, sometimes I'd wear short sleeves. But again, I still prefer to wear long sleeves just to protect from the sun, in general, regardless of tattoos. So I have a lot of, I guess, like sportswear that's long sleeve. It's ultra light.
I should use more of that. That's smart. Skin cancer is no joke, but I just like short sleeves in the summer.
Yeah, like, yeah, I'm not really the short sleeve guy, like, ever, I guess. I never really thought about it. So I've never really had, obviously, if you're my friend or something, or, you know, I mean, girlfriend, they're gonna see tattoos, and it's you get a reaction because it's not common here. It wasn't common here, but not negative, not at all. It's just like you're saying. It's like you're an outsider, and you know, just as likely, like, I shave my head, right? No one considers me to be like a skinhead or like, it's like, it's just not a thing.
It's
I
just,
was told a bunch of times when I was new here, they were like, yeah, people would be like, oh, tattoos, that's kind of surprising, but you're a foreigner, and they're not tattoos of dragons or tigers. So you're obviously it's not a gang related thing. So
you're talking about your tattoo, like on your back, is like, it's almost like our university color, isn't it?
It's my old university logo.
Right,
it's the mountains from my university.
Right, it's outline of the mountains, but the color, I always thought it was kind of funny. That color reminds me of CAU's blue.
It is actually, yeah, it's a bit darker, but yeah, not too far off. That's kind of interesting. I hadn't made that connection, but yeah, it's just the mountains, and I don't need to get into the meanings of the colors, but yeah, it's just the mountains from my hometown, so it's just a simple line. So fortunately, it's nothing that could possibly be taken as offensive, except to me when some people have told me in the past that they thought it was the Coors beer logo. It is not.
Don't worry. When it comes to tattoos, I have the worst. Mine's the worst. Like I went down the most cliche, but it's an interesting story because I got it here in Korea. Actually, I got both my tattoos in Korea.
How long ago?
So the one that I want to cover up is a tribal tattoo, which already just I hate tribal tattoos. But at the time I was it was just kind of this thing my wife and I did on a whim, except we were just dating at the time. So this is 16 years ago. This is back in like 2003, 2004, something like that. And in Korea at that time, it was really illegal. Like you had to find someone underground that was doing tattoos. And so we had to go to an office-tel, which was, if you guys know office-tels, they're just apartments. And so you walk into the apartment, but the apartment had been like fitted to be a tattoo parlor. But it was just one guy, you know, and we check to make sure they have, like, you know, they're not just tattooing 5 people in a row with the same needle, you know, like I saw him open the package and take out a new needle. Now he could have been lying or whatever, but my blood work is fine. We survived, but at the time there wasn't like a lot of choices. The guy wasn't like really, I think he was just learning or whatever. Because
how did you find him?
So my wife found him somehow. I don't know, through some like Cyworld, you know.
Okay,
so,
again, online stuff.
Yeah, again, like an online kind of underground word of mouth thing. And you go to this place, this building, this address. You make an appointment with this guy, and and so I just got like the most cliche tattoo of like the bicep. It's like, it's not barbed wire, but it was the what do you call it? Thorns, like it just,
Okay.
there are 200 million of those tattoos across the guys that graduated from high school in the 90s with thorn tattoos around their bicep. There's got to be millions of us out there.
Yeah.
We're a tribe.
That's kind of funny.
And so, but it seemed like such a safe bet, and so we just got really, basic tattoos. And but it was the whole thing seemed so underground and so kind of I don't know what you call those, like speakeasy type of thing or whatever, like and so my big worry after that was just like, how what are the how safe is this place, what kind of safety do they have? So but it was kind of a cool story, because I had friends in my Hagwon that also wanted to get their names in Korean tattooed.
Nice.
And they went to a similar place where it was like 3 knocks on the door and somebody checks the peephole and say the secret password, and you get in and you get your tattoo. And that was the only place you could go back then. And now that I live in Pyeongtaek, I live near the Osan Air Base, and I live near the Camp Humphreys, and there are tattoo parlors all over downtown Pyeongtaek.
Oh, really? So you can just see them
from the
the
street.
advertise.
Yeah, and you walk in and you can talk to the tattoo artist. So I think it's one of those crimes that they just kind of chalk up as like, well, this is kind of a foreigner friendly military area. We'll just kind of let it pass, just let it slide.
That's interesting that there's shops. I'm surprised to hear that, actually, because from the articles that I was reading, it seems very much that it's still not as underground as what you were describing a second ago when you got yours done, but still underground. Like one of the articles I was reading was talking about how you basically reach out through their Instagram now instead of Cyworld, but still social network. So you just reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm interested. And you probably talk to them on there, discuss pricing, discuss, designs, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll tell you, okay, come here. Where do you want to meet? So I don't know if they have like a permanent shop or not.
Nope.
So it's kind of cool. It's interesting.
So where I got my second tattoo was in Pyeongtaek, and that was a tattoo shop that I found in the Songtan area, which is where near Osan Air Base.
At that tattoo shop that you went to, it was a Korean that was tattooing you?
Yeah.
Do they speak English?
Yeah, he did. He studied in Japan, and so he got his ink and everything from Japan. So I think his background was like he learned to tattoo in Japan. Yeah. But yeah,
I'm just curious if like there's like how gambling works.
Yeah, like an exemption. Yeah,
there's an exemption for foreigners for gambling in Korea, for listeners that don't know. So if you want to gamble here, you can, but for the most part, Koreans can't. What is there? There's like the lottery, and there's the horse track, right? They can gamble there.
There are casinos outside of Seoul.
Not sure.
Actually, that Koreans can go to.
Can
full on big
city thing.
So I don't know exactly what it is, but there's certain, maybe it's like the Las Vegas of Korea.
Yeah,
I don't think it's as big. But
this was just like my firsthand experience when I was in Busan. We went to a casino there with some of my foreign friends and played cards for a little bit. And
we've all done that.
It was a really short trip. But when we went there, I was surprised. I'm like, whoa, it's all foreigners. What's going on here? And it's like, oh, that's because that's what's going on. I just wonder if it's a similar thing because it's close to the base, because I do know that the underground or like, getting a tattoo in someone's house, that's still very much alive. One of my friends here, I think he's still working on the tattoo. It's like continuous sessions. He's getting like a whole sleeve done. And as far as I know, he goes to the guy's house, and it's excellent work. I mean, this is like the same thing you'd find, the highest quality, like,
yeah, they're really good tattoo. There are some really good tattoos.
He's going to the guy's house that still exists, even though they're shops. So there must be, I don't know, maybe just doesn't want to take the risk or doesn't want to put up a shingle.
No, when I went to, these are not huge shops. These are usually just like, they do rent the space, and it was a tattoo parlor, but a lot of them are also piercing shops as well. So I wonder if they're not emphasizing the piercing, but you can also get the tattoo. Nobody bugged us. There was no, but the problem is, I think one of the problems is that the tattoo artists don't really have the protection of the law, right? Since it's already deemed illegal for them to be tattooing, if the customer decides, I'm not going to pay you, I'm just going to walk out of here. And if you say anything, I'm going straight to the police station. There's not a lot of.
And I wonder if like liability gets also thrown on them too. It's like personal liability. So, it's.
There's probably no insurance for it, of course.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what the article was talking about. A couple of these articles were talking about as well, is how it's still illegal, but the police just don't really care about it unless it's reported.
Yes.
Then they have to do something about it because it's been reported, like, oh, there's a crime, we've got to go deal with this. And so again, that feels really sketchy for the tattoo artist, because someone could just be like, I didn't like my tattoo, I'm gonna report you.
Or I just don't want to pay. This is expensive, and
sure,
I'll just get a free one. If you're
it really makes sense that a lot of these tattoo artists, I saw in one of the articles, he's like, I could go to the States and just do better work and get paid more and not have to worry about all of this, going to court or going to jail. Like Doi, in the case that the article was about, like, he only got fined 5 million won, which, I mean, that's no small amount of money, but he only got the fine, whereas some of the articles are saying, like, normally they can go to jail for up to 2 years.
I saw that was like 2 years in jail or $1,000 fine. And I was like, that's really weird. That's a huge difference, is it not? Like, that's kind of like saying you can either,
But yeah, so exactly. So, and as you were saying, some of the tattoo artists here, they do really good work. Yeah. There's some really talented people here, and it makes sense to, like, well, I'm really good, I can stay here and work under the law, and or I can just go to the States or go to Japan or go somewhere else.
And you get paid a lot more too if you're
get paid more and be treated respectfully, and have like my own shop and do what I want to do. Because at this point here, it's still just this weird behind the law thing.
Yeah. And I think that I think for those reasons that they don't like operating in that gray area, because there is no legal, they don't have that legal infrastructure or support system to, fall back on. How do they pay their taxes? I mean, if your job that you're doing is illegal, how do you file taxes for, what are you saying you're getting paid for?
I wonder if it's something weird, like how a lot of the marijuana dispensaries in the States, in the legal states, don't pay, or like they pay taxes in a weird way for it, because like there's this weird loopholes about it. Like,
well, that's in America, that's the exact same, the situation essentially for what we're dealing with here. What tattoos are here.
It's legal and illegal at the same time.
Yeah.
But this is something that, so in Korea, both the perception is changing of tattoos just in general. I mean, you'll see a lot of celebrities have it. If you've been here in Korea, if you've ever watched Korean TV, I guess something that's really interesting for people is tattoos often, although it's becoming less and less so, often are either covered up with like stickers or band-aids or something, or just straight out blurred. On TV, they just blur it as if you would nudity or something along those lines. That was always surprising to me. It's like, I know there's a tattoo under there, but they just blur it out. So it's still hidden on TV a little, though they're starting to show it. But more and more celebrities are getting tattoos and showing it on their Instagram and things like that. I do want to talk about the law changing in a second, but before that, I actually found an article about some tattoos here, and some K-pop artists, or not K-pop artists, maybe she's just an actress, and this is something that's unfortunately still very different for men and women in Korea. Men having tattoos is more okay, I guess, more socially acceptable than women having tattoos here. And there was one actress, Han So-hee, who was in the World of the Married. I guess I know of that show, but I didn't watch it. And she had like a pretty cool tattoo. Actually, had a couple in this image that I'm looking at here online. She had like a couple of tattoos, one on her lower arm, one on her left on her upper arm. They looked really well done. And she actually had at least one of them removed as being part of her dirty, quote unquote, dirty past.
Yeah.
Of having a tattoo. And that's just, it's bullshit. It's because I can't think of any male pop stars or actors here in Korea who have tattoos. They might have to cover it on TV, but they're not going to be like, oh, I was bad when I was young and I got my tattoo removed. So even though tattoos are becoming more and more and more common, and you're seeing a lot more K-pop stars with it. I mean, one of the guys on BTS has like, hand tattoos. So that shows up everywhere. It still has its social issues. People still don't completely accept it, and fan bases are still picky and weird about what it means to be a tattooed person in Korea, I guess.
Yeah. And the one of the quotes I read, this is from another actress, was in the eyes of the fans, the pure image of the K-pop star or actress is ruined forever. You've ruined the image for me of her, because now she's not, pure. And it's a weird kind of ownership over the bodies of the artists by the fans, which I think is too far. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah,
that is something that we could talk about with K-pop later, potentially, about that image that K-pop stars have to have of being pure and innocent and everything, and getting getting a tattoo. And I know the article you're talking about, the image of her, she's got tattoos of like, they're flowers, like they're not even like hardcore, it's not like a skull and crossbones or something. It's like some lilacs or something like that on her arm. It's beautiful. And yeah, how is that not being pure by having that?
I think what's more strange to me is like if I see on TV and someone has a bandage over their tattoo, okay, I get it, you want to like kind of hide that, and it kind of like does. But when they blur it, it's so, you're drawing attention to that. It's just like when you see blurred genitals in a TV show, you look at the blurred genitals. And it's like, okay, like what Kevin's saying, like if it says like F you or something like bad, or it's like, an ugly, thing, you got to blur it. So that's just the assumption. The assumption is like, oh, wow, she must have a tattoo of like some guy's butthole or something, just really nasty, right?
Right.
What else?
What if the genitals are tattooed? What, that's
like
breaks
blur?
the blur machine. Yeah, no blur.
Yeah, just like went in the fourth dimension.
Right.
Yeah. So like, you find out later, like the tattoo is some like beautiful flower, this little heart. And it's like, okay, so I'm not just making fun of this. I want to understand like, what's the motivation to blur it? Like to blur it's to like say like, we don't want to see that. That's not appropriate. But I don't get it. I get like, if it's something that's like a prison tat or like a gang tattoo, or if it has like something that's offensive, but it's just even the image of itself. Like, how's a flower offensive? But it must just be. And if it is just like the tattoo's offensive, well, you did a really bad job of like obliterating it. You just like, you're making me look now.
Well, how about this? I think it's because the gatekeepers are just not willing to move on. They're just stubborn because they're just like, they're older conservative men, essentially, right? So
yeah,
so I think young people can say, well, if you're offended by my tattoo, I'm offended by the jet black dye that you put in your hair and then slick it over your bald spot and pretend like you're not bald. Have the bravery to shave your head and be yourself. I mean, that's what I think young people are kind of screaming, and but they just don't have enough power or whatever to me, I don't know. Do you guys feel like it's holding back a tidal wave right now, or is this something?
I think you're seeing this in a lot of countries, and we'll avoid politics, of course, but a lot of politicians in a lot of countries are older people. And as younger people start to get into politics, it's starting to change things. And actually, just last year, I don't know if you guys remember seeing in the news about the politician here who's trying to change the laws about it. It's kind of cool. So there's a relatively younger politician for the Justice Party here in Korea. And if anyone knows anything about Korean politics, there's a bunch of different parties here. There's two main ones, but there's a bunch of different parties. The Justice Party is a relatively liberal. Actually, I think they're a bit more than relatively. I think they're relatively, or they're a bit more left wing than the main People's Party. So anyway, there's this politician and she's relatively new, Ryu Ho-jung, I guess, in the Justice Party. She last year, I remember seeing this on the news. It was pretty cool. She actually she did something to piss off people, and then she did something that was really good as well. She created some new laws, or proposed new laws to basically make tattooing legal here. So it is starting in parliament here. They're trying to make the rules, and it's because of these young politicians, or this one young politician who is trying to get things done. So we might start to see some change here in the next few years if it becomes important enough of a topic to actually go out.
Yeah, I think that's also like a thing to consider. Like, I don't think it's only like grumpy old men in charge. I think it's also like you've got to find someone who like cares to write the legislation, you know,
Sure.
like take the effort, the money and time to do it. And when something's been in place for so long, it's just like, why bother? I think there's a little bit of that going on.
Sure.
Also, I think that if you look at, I think it's easy to forget because we've been away from America for a while, and we see it just, most of the images that we get of the States, we get it through social media, we get it through the news. And there's this assumption that, tattoos and everything, it's just peachy, and like it's no problem if a girl has a tattoo versus a boy. Like we just made that one of you guys said that, like asserted that here in Korea, that the men get a pass but the women don't get a pass for having tattoos. Is that really different in the States? I don't know. Like I wonder if it's still more socially acceptable in certain communities in the United States for a man to have a tattoo with a girl not to.
You know what though? Yeah, a girl with like a sleeve tattoo is going to have a different, like, is going to be stereotyped differently than a girl without a tattoo. It's, she's a tough chick. She's she's harder, more severe. Just that's what you kind of get with that appearance. We make that judgment, right? I think. I mean, at least when I lived there, that was But it's been a while, so.
Yeah, I like to think that it's opening up and it's changing, but and then the Koreans are very, what do you say, like they're generally, Koreans travel internationally a lot, I think, compared to like the average. We take the average American, the average Korean, on average, the Korean is out of the country more often than the average American is out of their country.
Sure, definitely.
Oh, and by far.
Right, that's a pretty easy thing to say. Like I don't need to look that up. And with that comes exposure to where are they going? They're going, often to, countries like America, where you're seeing stuff like this. Same thing. Cultural import from the U.S. is pretty constant around the world in a lot of places, and here definitely. And so, with things maybe loosening up in the States, people feel more comfortable with it here. Also, something else about, speaking of comfort, I noticed not only do students tend to have tattoos, but they're becoming more like, I don't want to say brazen, but like you're seeing tattoos that aren't so much hidden. I've seen girls with neck tattoos here.
Yeah.
Just never would have saw it in the first few years. Things that go past the back of the wrist onto the hand. Things that
you couldn't hide in a job interview. I see that now.
Yeah. Things that I personally never do.
Same. They're like braver than I am.
But I'm also I'm older, and when I was their age, 2 decades ago, the world was a little bit different, so I think things are changing here, but yeah, I feel like the legislation, it's just going to take a long time to catch up because it's changed like pretty quickly, like many things here.
Yeah.
I don't know. That is kind of
it'll be interesting to see where the law is going. Just to go back a little bit about what this Ryu Ho-jung was doing last year. It was kind of cool. So she did, in case you guys didn't see the news, I remember seeing it online last year. She did 2 things to try and bring awareness to tattoos. One thing that she did was she actually put up a picture on her either Instagram or Facebook or some social network of one of the BTS members who's got like the hand tattoos, and she's basically like, look, this guy's got hand tattoos. Why are we stigmatizing tattoos? Like, this is BTS. They're one of the biggest groups globally these days. And she actually got a lot of flack from that because people were saying like, you're using BTS, you're using these big names for your cause, and which I personally think is kind of bull, because like the dude has tattoos on his hands. He's clearly a
She's just stating a fact,
Yeah,
I mean, she didn't.
Right.
She's not outing
Yeah.
him for something that, you know.
Yeah, and she's not saying he said we should change the law. She's just like, look, here's a picture of BTS dude
Yeah.
who has tattoos on his hands, and you know, this should change. So I think she got a lot of like the criticism she got from that seemed pretty unwarranted in my personal opinion. But whatever, the internet does what the internet does, and they like BTS more than they like her. So they think she was trying to ride on his fame, basically, I guess. But then even more cool, what she did is, when I actually first saw this picture, I was really surprised. There's a picture of her wearing a purple dress, and it's got like a big open back. All right, so like her entire back is open, and on her back, it's got like just her whole back is covered in tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first saw this image, I was like, whoa! I remember this last year when it came out. It's like, are those real? I went through a bunch of the articles. I was like, okay, no, she put temporary tattoos on her back, erasable tattoos. But the point was, she just went out and she's like, look, this is what, you know, tattoos can be beautiful. I can have these as well. And she's the one who's trying to change the rules. And so she went out at a press conference, and she's just like, boom, check out my back. I've got, yes, they're not real. They're not permanent tattoos, but you know, there's nothing wrong. I'm trying to destigmatize, you know, even a politician having tattoos here. And
well,
so
I want to get more. I want to get a sleeve tattoo that's just, you know, just so that, you know, it's very obvious, so that my own kid is going to be so, you know, repulsed by, you know, like my father has tattoos. I don't want to get a tattoo at all. The only way to go is the opposite way now, you know, for the next generation, the younger generation, is to say,
do you want to get your sleeve so that your daughter won't want to get anything?
Yeah, exactly. You know, yeah, just, you know, this is it. I'm all tatted
My dad
up.
thinks tattoos are cool.
Just like,
obviously,
you know,
they're not.
My dad's music. I didn't like my dad's music. But did you guys? There was one last thing here, really quickly. In the Philippines, there's a popular YouTuber in she's Filipino, but in Korea she was very popular.
I saw this.
Yeah, she had like it looked like a sun. It looked like almost like the rising sun Japanese symbol. Is that am I describing it right? It's like a rising sun.
No, absolutely.
Sun? Yeah.
Yes, it's yeah, she got a tattoo of, where's that article? We got like 5 different articles open here. Yeah, it's like a heart, right, in it?
No, I think originally it was like a sun, and then I think she got a heart.
Oh, she put the heart.
That's the cover up. Yeah, so it's
didn't see the
just
original.
like and it's not a heart. It's like literally like
physical,
aorta.
medical.
You know, you can see it's
what's the reason why anybody from the Philippines would get the rising sun tattoo? Like, I want to know what.
I don't think it
That's a
was. I don't
strange
think it was
choice.
Japanese. I don't think it wasn't exactly the same as that. I think it was just a coincidence. I think it was just like, oh, that looks cool. You know, the sunbeams
I get that
are kind
feeling
of coming out.
I get that feeling as well, but it looked so much like the Japanese rising sun.
I know, yeah.
Flag, that it's kind of hard to mistake it. Like, even not I don't have the same connotations as that as anyone here in Korea, but I would have caught that pretty quick as well. So yeah, that was poorly planned, perhaps. But yeah,
maybe it was just like a mistake. Like, I mean, maybe she was young and had no idea and saw it like in the Flash book at
exactly.
Tattoo Studio. Like, hey, that's cool. That's really pretty. Yeah. It's like a sunset. Oh, I like that. You know?
I have like someone getting Chinese tattoos and they don't know what it actually says, and it's like supermarket on their arm or something.
It says it says hope and purity. No, it doesn't. It says table and chair or something, you know.
Yeah, it's like, why don't you give me those 2 little lightning bolts with that cool pinwheel next to it? I like that.
Yeah, right. Or I mean, yeah, the
my name is Sam Smith.
The backwards. Oh gosh, yeah, Sam Smith. Right. Or, you know, how about the k sound, you know, like the laughing in Korea? Just give me 3 of those, you know?
Fun.
Yeah,
so
just for fun, you know? I mean, isn't that kind of the same situation we have in America, though, with like the tattoos affiliation with like white supremacy? You know, like there is a genre of tattoos that are associated with some pretty, you know, prison and white supremacy and all that sort of stuff. And like you were talking about earlier, gangs. So there is like an underworld kind of attraction to tattoos, but they just kind of become so mainstream now. I just don't, it's so, even when it's trying to be shocking, I think people look at the tattoo and they're like, if it's not on your face, yawn. Okay, big deal. You got a tattoo,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
Yeah,
the
it's
way
really
I feel about it.
shifted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
it's really
nothing
shifted.
edgy about it anymore,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, when I see like 20-year-old freshman students with tattoos on their neck,
yeah,
it's just kind of like, yeah.
that's gonna
Not
hurt to get
I'm not-
lasered off in 5 years when you're trying to get a job at that company. Why do you wear turtlenecks all the time, every day? It's 90 degrees outside, you know.
It's super.
Yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, I just wonder, they're just catching up. They're just everything moves so quickly here. I think that, well, it'll be sad if all the best tattoo artists leave Korea. That would be, I think, kind of sad, because you want to keep, talented artists in the country. But
Yeah, of course.
I think eventually they're just going to legalize it. I just don't see how they can hold this position.
I'm
It just
sure
seems
it'll get
untenable.
legalized because, again, I mean, it's like you're saying, it's a law that's it's illegal on paper, that no one really cares about unless it's officially, unless someone calls and it's like, yo, there's a tattoo shop over here, you guys need to go check it out. So already it's like, semi not illegal. It's a weird way to say it.
Yeah.
It's becoming okay. It's becoming cultural. It's becoming more normal. And so it really is just a matter of like a lot of things here. Finally, some politician is going to be like, it's worth, spending the time, like the politician I was just talking about. Like she doesn't have a lot of influence yet, but she finally came out and was like, let's try and introduce some laws. And I don't know what came of it yet. I don't think very much, but it just needs one or two people to start pushing for it, and then it'll finally become legal. It will become legal in Korea. There's no reason for it to remain illegal. It's just a matter of when.
I mean, at a certain point, they're just going to have to wrap all the television actors and stars in so much beige tape. There'll be more tape than skin.
Be a mummy,
you know what I mean? Yeah,
TV.
just be a mummy. I mean, it's just getting kind of ridiculous to the point where they're just slapping these huge band-aids on these actors, and they're running around.
That's something with a lot of things in Korea. Just the laws are changing here about so many things so quickly because the country is changing so quickly as well. So there's a lot of things that the laws just haven't caught up yet.
One thing that we haven't talked about, and I don't know if either of you guys know this, where does the law originate from? Like, there's plenty of things that are like not cool to do, but like aren't that big of a deal. Like if you went to a jjimjilbang and you're sitting in the hot tub and the guy next to you starts farting, okay, that's not cool, like that's not, it's also not illegal. But if he does it, everybody's going to be like, yeah, right, just get away from me, right? There's plenty of behaviors like this in society. So tattooing, at some point in time was not illegal. It was probably something that was just sort of like over there, like, hey, so why did the law come into place? Like in my example, if there was like a lot of guys that were farting in jjimjilbangs, then there'd be a law, right? Be like, this is disgusting, knock it off. So what would be the thing that caused tattoos to get a law made? And how old is that? Because the government in Korea is not that old.
See, I think that, I mean, from the reading that I did, it seemed like in the early 90s, they kind of coded. I may be mistaken with this, but I thought I came across
on this article from the BBC article that I found originally. It says in 1992, the Supreme Court of South Korea defined tattooing as a medical practice due to the risk of infection caused by tattoo ink and needles.
So it was probably
that's
legal before that, but probably not common because of its close association with the criminal underworld, based on the Japanese occupation and Yakuza, and probably trying to get as far away from that as they could, like we don't want any association with Japan. And so it was probably more cultural. Like they didn't need a law, right? Back then.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, why did the law rise up? So why did that come up? Because it's not because of Yakuza and tattoo.
No, but probably because enough time passed in between where the cultural, I don't know, the cultural fuel started to dissipate, I imagine. As it went in the 90s, they were like, people are watching television, American movies, they're seeing tattoos. Oh, I want a tattoo. And they didn't have that that bad cultural association the same way that maybe their father or grandfather.
Okay, so you're suggesting that what happened possibly is that tattooing became popular and it started to become mainstream.
I think they became interested in it, and it just didn't have the maybe cultural force that it did in the 60s and the 50s. When you're getting closer to that Japanese occupation, the closer you are, the stronger that connotation is with tattooing being negative. The farther away you get from it, you get to the 90s, and all of a sudden it's been 42 years since the Korean War, or 40 years. That's pretty far out. It's kind of like it's kind of like socialism in America right now is not as taboo as it was for our generation and our parents' generation. The idea of that.
I feel like if there should have been, if the law had something to do with what it looks like. The law looks like it's for public health, right? It looks like something that came from like KCDC. That's what it looks like, because it's about, you have to be a medical professional for safety, for public safety. I feel like that would have happened in the 80s, right? Because of HIV.
Right.
Like,
yes.
Been a bigger concern like 10 years prior.
Yeah.
I don't know when that timeline goes. It's interesting that it's such a late law. Mm-hmm. Like of any kind.
Well, early 90s isn't too far from those 80s, of course.
That's true.
I wonder, although you bring an interesting point, and this is something that it would be probably very difficult to do research on. We'd have to get like really political at this point. I wonder if this is something along the lines of why, like maybe like what you guys are saying, and I'm just totally spitballing at this point, but maybe the same reason that like marijuana became illegal in America was because they were trying to point to specific groups of people that they wanted to penalize. And it's the same thing here. Certain groups of people
You're talking
were
about marginalized groups that
exactly.
Yeah.
And so certain groups of people were getting tattoos here in Korea, and in order to marginalize them further, we make a law that on its face looks like it's about public health, but actually accomplishes something different. But again, I have no idea because I don't know exactly what was happening. I do know in the early 90s, I mean, this could have been like, this was not too far after a lot of the Democratic protests. That was like in 1988, of course. So maybe there's something connected to that. And just a couple of years after when this law was made. But this is me talking well above my pay grade.
Right.
At this point.
Was it a form of social control? Was it a fear of HIV? I mean, I bet all these components are play into this a little bit. It does seem more rational to me in 92 now to make that law, given that that's in the shadow of the HIV crisis in the 80s. So
who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, ink in Korea is getting safer and better, but you still have to go knock on some doors sometimes. I guess find the place,
or you just come down to Pyeongtaek. It seems
apparently,
pretty. It's pretty. Let your freak flag fly down here. So
that's kind of interesting. I've been wanting to get some work done for a while anyway. So if I need to, I'll go visit you one of these days.
Yeah, my neck of the woods. All right, well, that's our patch today. I feel like we had a good conversation. If you want to contact us, you can always send us an email at thesoulpatch@gmail.com. Go to our website, thesoulpatch.com, for a one-stop shop to download on a number of platforms, or you can watch us on YouTube. Give us a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you can, give us a good review on Apple Podcasts. That really would help us out. So,
or just go get a soul patch tattoo would be even more badass.
If you would
Instagram slam that, Instagram right now. Do that.
Yes.
It's a great idea.
That is the mark of the greatest fan right there. You will
never regret it.
No,
never regret.
No,
guaranteed.
Or just go to the cosmetic one, and they could probably draw you one a soul patch right under.
Yeah. No, I don't mean that. I don't mean the soul patch like the facial hair. I mean the Soul Patch podcast logo.
No, I know what you meant. I was saying you could, if you want to go the other way, just go with the cosmetic one too. So.
Actual.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Thanks, everybody.
I'd like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
Nothing gear. It's all my love. It's all my love. The quiet man. It's all my love. It's all my love.
dopamine.
Jim. It's all my love. It's all my love. It's all my love.
The brain.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
Hey, Bobby.
Let the bass go.